When Noah awoke from his drunkenness and learned what his youngest son had done to him, he said, "Cursed be Canaan! Meanest of the slaves shall he be to his brethren." Then he said, "Blessed be the Lord, the God of Shem. Let Canaan be his slave. May God expand Japheth. Let him dwell in the tents of Shem. Let Canaan be his slave." Noah lived 350 years after the flood. The whole lifetime of Noah was 950 years. Then he died. These are the descendants of the sons of Noah: Shem, Ham, Japheth. Sons were born to them after the flood. The descendants of Japheth are Gomer, Magog, Madai, Javan, Tubal, Meshach, and Tiras. The descendants of Gomer are Ashkenaz, Riphath, and Togarmah. The descendants of Javan are Eliezer, Taras, Kittim, and the Rodanim. From these sprang the island peoples. These are the descendants of Japheth and their countries, according to their languages and their families, and by their nations. The descendants of Ham are Cruz, Meram, Put, and Canaan. The descendants of Cruz, Seba, Havilah, Sabta, Reima, and Sabtika. The descendants of Reima and Seba and Dedan. Cruz was the father of Nimrod. He was the first to be a conqueror on the earth. He was a mighty hunter before the Lord. Hence the saying, like Nimrod, a mighty hunter before the Lord. The beginning of his kingdom was Babylon, Iraq, and Akkad, all of them in the land of Shinar. From that region Assyria went forth and built Nineveh, and Rehoboth, and Calah, and Rizan. Between Nineveh and Calah, that is the great city. Mizraim became the father of Ludim, Lehabam, Naphtuhim, Pathrusim, Casluhim, and Caphtorim, from whom the Philistines sprang. Canaan became the father of Sidon, his firstborn, and Het, and the Jebusite, the Amorite, the Girgasite, the Hivite, the Arisite, the Sinite, the Aradite, the Samarite, and the Hamathite. Afterward, the families of the Canaanites spread abroad, and the border of the Canaanite extended from Sidon in the direction of Gerarah as far as the Gaza, in the direction of Sodom, Gomorrah, Adama, and Seboim, as far as Laisha. These are the descendants of Ham, according to their families and their languages in their countries by their nations. To Shem, also the father of the descendants of Eber, the elder brother of Japheth, children were born. The descendants of Shem were Elam, Ishur, Arpachshad, Lud, and Aram. The descendants of Aram were Uz, Chul, Jether, and Mash. Arpachshad became the father of Shelah, and Shelah became the father of Eber. The two sons were born to Eber. The one was Peleg, for in his time the world was divided, and his brother was Joktan. Joktan became the father of Almodad, Saleph, Heshemeveth, Jerah, Adoram, Uzel, Tekla, Ebel, Abimiel, Sheba, Ophir, Havilah, and Jobab. All these were the sons of Joktan. Their settlements extended from Misha in the direction of Shepha to the mountains of the east. These are the descendants of Shem, according to their families and their languages in the countries by their nations. These are the families of the sons of Noah, according to their descent in the nations. From these, the nations branched out over the earth after the flood. The whole earth used the same language and the same speech. While men were migrating eastward, they discovered a valley in the land of Shinar and settled there. They said to one another, "Come, let us make bricks and bake them." They used the bricks for stone and the bitumen for mortar. Then they said, "Let us build ourselves a city and a tower with its top in the heavens. Let us make a name for ourselves, lest we be scattered all over the earth." The Lord came down to see the city and the tower which men had built. And the Lord said,
"Truly, they are one people, and they all have the same language. This is the beginning of what they will do. Hereafter, they will not be restrained from anything which they determine to do. Let us go down and there confuse their language, so that they will not understand one another's speech."
So the Lord scattered them from that place all over the earth, and they stopped building the city. For this reason it was called Babel, because there the Lord confused the speech of all the earth. From there the Lord scattered them all over the earth. These are the descendants of Shem. When Shem was 100 years old, he became the father of Arpachshad 2 years after the flood. Shem lived 500 years after the birth of Arpachshad and had other sons and daughters. When Arpachshad was 35 years old, he became the father of Shelah. Arpachshad lived 403 years after the birth of Shelah and had other sons and daughters. When Shelah was 30 years old, he became the father of Eber. Shelah lived 403 years after the birth of Eber and had other sons and daughters. When Eber was 34 years old, he became the father of Peleg. Eber lived 430 years after the birth of Peleg and had other sons and daughters. When Peleg was 30 years old, he became the father of Reu. Peleg lived 209 years after the birth of Reu and had other sons and daughters. When Reu was 32 years old, he became the father of Serug. Reu lived 207 years after the birth of Serug and had other sons and daughters. When Serug was 30 years old, he became the father of Nahor. Serug lived 200 years after the birth of Nahor and had other sons and daughters. When Nahor was 29 years old, he became the father of Terah. Nahor lived 119 years after the birth of Terah and had other sons and daughters. When Terah was 70 years old, he became the father of Abraham, Nahor, and Aram. These are the descendants of Terah. Terah was the father of Abraham, Nahor, and Haran. Haran became the father of Lot. Haran died before his father Terah in the land of his birth, in Ur of the Chaldees. Abram and Nahor's wife was Milcah, the daughter of Aran, father of Milcah and Jessica. Now Sarah was barren, she had no children. Terah took his son Abram and his grandson Lot, the son of Haran, and his daughter-in-law Sarah, the wife of his son Abraham, and led them from Ur to the Chaldees toward the land of Canaan. But when they reached Haran, they settled there. The lifetime of Terah was 205 years, and he died in Haran. the Lord said to Abram,
Leave your country, your kinsfolk, and your father's house. For the land which I will show you, I will make a great nation of you. I will bless you and make your name great, so that you shall be a blessing. I will bless them that bless you, and curse them that curse you. In you shall all the nations of the earth be blessed.
Abram went away as the Lord had commanded him, and Lot went with him. Abram was 75 years old when he left Haran. Abram took Sarah, his wife, Lot, his brother's son, all the property they had acquired, and the persons that they had got in Haran, and they departed for the land of Canaan. When they came to the land of Canaan, Abram passed through the land of the sacred place at Shechem, near the terebinth of Moreh. At that time the Canaanite was in the land. The Lord appeared to Abram and said,
To your descendants I will give this land.
So Abram built an altar there to the Lord, who had appeared to him. He moved from there to the mountain region east of Bethel, and pitched his tent with Bethel to the west and Ai to the east. He built an altar there to the Lord and called on the name of the Lord. Then Abram journeyed on toward the Negeb. Now there was a famine in the land, and Abram went down to Egypt, where he lived as a stranger. For the famine in the land was severe. When he was about to enter Egypt, he said to Sarai, his wife, I know that you are a woman beautiful to behold. When the Egyptians see you, they will say, She is your wife. Then they will kill me, but will spare you. Therefore, say, You are my sister, so that I may be treated well on your account, and my life may be spared for your sake. When Abram came to Egypt, the Egyptians saw that the woman was very beautiful. Pharaoh's princes saw her, and they praised her to Pharaoh. And the woman was taken to Pharaoh's house. He treated Abram well on her account, so that he received flocks, herds, he-asses, men-servants, maidservants, she-asses, and camels. But the Lord struck Pharaoh and his household with a great plague because of Sarai, Abraham's wife. Then Pharaoh summoned Abram and said, Why have you done this to me? Why did you not tell me she was your wife? Why did you say she was your sister and let me marry her? Here now is your wife. Take her and go. Then Pharaoh gave his men orders concerning Abraham, and they sent him away with his wife and all that belonged to him. Abram went up from Egypt to the Negeb, he and his wife, and all that belonged to him, and Lot with him. Now Abram was very rich in cattle, silver, and gold. He journeyed by stages from the Negeb to Bethel, to the place where his tent had been before, between Bethel and Ai. At the place where the altar was, which he had previously built there, Abraham called on the name of the Lord. Lot, who went there with Abram, also had flocks, herds, and tents, so that the land would not support them dwelling together. For the possessions were so great that they could not dwell together, and there was strife between the herdsmen of Abraham's cattle and the herdsmen of Lot's cattle. At that time the Canaanite and the Perizzite dwelt in the land, and Abram said to Lot, Let there be no strife between you and me, nor between my herdsmen and your herdsmen, for we are kinsmen. The Does not the whole land lie before you? Withdraw from me. If you go to the left, I will go to the right. Or if you take the right, I will go to the left. Then Lot looked about and saw that the whole region of the Jordan towards Sigor was well watered. This was before the Lord destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. Like the Lord's garden, or like Egypt. So Lot chose for himself the whole region of the Jordan and journeyed eastward. Thus they separated from each other. Abram dwelt in the land of the Canaan, while Lot dwelt in the cities of the Jordan, pitching his tent near Sodom. Now the men of Sodom were wicked and sinned exceedingly against the Lord. The Lord said to Abram, after Lot had parted from him,
Raise your eyes, and from where you are now, look to the north and the south and the east and the west. All your land which you see I will give to you, and your posterity forever. I will make your posterity as the dust of the earth. If anyone can count the grains of dust, your posterity can also be counted. Rise, walk through the length and breadth of the land, for to you I will give it.
Abram moved his tent and came to dwell by the terebinths of Mamre, which are at the Hebron, and he built an altar there to the Lord. In the time of Amraphel, king of Shinar, Arioch, king of Elasa, Chedorlaomer, king of Elam, and Tidal, king of Goyim. These kings waged war against Bara, king of Sodom, Bursa, king of Gomorrah, Sinab, king of Adama, Shemabah, king of Seboim, and the king of Bala. This is Zoar. These other kings formed an alliance in the valley of Siddim, that is, the Salt Sea. 12 years they had been subject to Chedorlaomer. But in the 13th year they had rebelled. In the 14th year came Chedorlaomer, and the kings with him. They defeated the Raphaim in the Esteroth Karnaim, the Zuzim in Ham, the Yomim in Save Kariathayim, the Horites in the mountains of Seir, as far as El Paran, close by the desert. Then they turned back and came to En Mishpat, that is, Cadiz, and subdued all of the country of the Amalekites, and also the Amorites who dwelt in the Hazazon Tamar. Then the king of Sodom, and the king of Gomorrah, and the king of Adama, the king of Seboim, and the king of Bala, that is, Zoar, went out, and they drew up in battle against them in the valley of Siddim, against Chedorlaomer, king of Elam, Tidal, king of Goyim, Amraphel, king of Shinar, and Arioch, king of Elasa. 4 kings against 5. Now the valley of Siddim was full of bitumen pits, and as the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah fled, some fell there, but the rest fled to the mountain. The victors took all the goods of Sodom and Gomorrah and all their provisions and went their way. They also took Lot, Abram's nephew, and his goods, for he had been living in Sodom. Then came a fugitive and reported to Abram the Hebrew, who was living near the terebinths of Mamre, and the Amorite, a kinsman of Ishkol and Enah. These were allies of Abram. When Abram heard that his kinsman had been taken prisoner, he called out 318 of his trained men, born in his house, and went in pursuit as far as Dan. He and his servants formed parties against them by night, defeated them and pursued them as far as Hobah, north of Damascus. He recovered all the goods, and his kinsman Lot, and his goods he also recovered, besides the women and the people. When Abram returned from the defeat of Chedorlaomer, and the kings with him, the king of Sodom, went out to meet Abram in the valley of Shaveh, that is, in the king's valley. Then Melchizedek, the king of Salem, brought out bread and wine, for he was a priest of the Most High God. He blessed Abram and said, "Blessed be Abram by the Most High God, creator of heaven and earth. Blessed be the Most High God, who has delivered your enemies into your hand." Then Abram gave him a tenth of everything.